Welcome back to my little corner of the world. Today, I'm so excited. This is March 27th, 2023. It's spring. How about that? Really fun. I'm so glad that it's spring. I just love the atmosphere, everything about it. I could do without any tornadoes hitting the area. That would be really nice, or high winds or whatnot. Anyway, I have a great show today. It is with a wonderful person who I met many years ago at a place called This House Rocks. And the musician's name is Mark Rivera. You've probably seen the face, probably billions of times in a lot of music videos. You're probably like, I know that guy. I know that name. Well, he has played with some of music's biggest talents, from Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr to Elton John and Billy Joel, and everybody in between, like Foreigner, Hall & Oates, Paul Simon and Garfunkel. He's played with a lot of these people. He's primarily a saxophonist, but he can play zillions of instruments. Great vocalist. He even recorded an album of his own back in 2014 called Common Bond. His name is Mark Rivera, and if you really like going to Billy Joel shows, he's a big part of it. He's the guy who's doing New York State of Mind, Just the Way You Are. And we talk about this in the interview. Billy is really cool. Even though he's a solo performer and all these people back him up, it's a really great team effort. And through the show, after certain songs where they've taken the lead, Billy likes to introduce each member individually. I don't see that too much when I go to shows, so it's really interesting. Mark just wrote a book called Sideman, Pursuit of the Next Gig. Talks about how he has gotten work through the years and how he has worked incredibly hard to get all these gigs. The biggest gig right now is with Billy Joel. You'll see him in those shows. This summer, and it's already actually started, Billy has been performing with Stevie Nicks, formerly of Fleetwood Mac. Stevie is back out on the road with him, and they trade off on certain songs in the shows. Billy joins Stevie on Stop Dragging My Heart Around, and Stevie came out during Billy's set. This started in Los Angeles, so by the time you hear this, they might have done another show. They're doing a whole bunch of shows this year, so it's really amazing. And seeing the clips on YouTube, I'm really impressed. So we talk about a lot of that and much more. Mark Rivera. So I hope you really enjoyed this episode. I certainly did, or at least my chat. So this is the episode. Anyway, I'll shut up. On to the interview. Nice to see you again. Yes, absolutely. So I guess my biggest question is right now, I've been following you a lot over all the years. Why a book now? You got a lot more years ahead of you.
Well, from your lips to God's ears, and I appreciate that. A young lady that I've been talking to about doing some speaking engagements, because I think I speak well enough to do some speaking engagements. So I figured that, and I'd have some photographs or some videos, and basically do a Q&A. And at one point she said, well, why don't you write a book? I'm like, no, that's what you do just as you're about to fall off stage for the rest of, or like right. As you're bowing out of the whole thing, to your point. And she said, no, it could be a very powerful tool to have to do more speaking engagements, and it's another product. I mean, nobody buys CDs anymore. So it's
sad.
It's a sad state of affairs that way. But a book is something that people actually find interesting. And it happened I met the woman, I think, in February of 2020. And as it turns out, we came back from a gig with Billy. March 6th was the gig, March 7th, 2020. We came back from Mexico City, and lo and behold, a week later, the world stopped. And my wife and I caught COVID, and then, well, what better thing to do with your COVID vacation than write a book? So
yeah, it really is. Yeah. And a lot of art came out of that from a bunch of artists.
Yes. In fact, a lot of people were doing the Zoom shows and stuff, but I have to say I did one or two of those, and I'm allowed to say, just left me cold. it's look, we're having a wonderful conversation, but I'm not trying to, hey, let's listen to my next song. It's that whole
Yeah.
presentation got a little bit stale to me, or it seemed forced. Whereas when you're at a gig, whether it's 20 people or 20,000 people, you're getting the response, you're getting that energy, and that's what we thrive on as artists. And I look, it's all about communication.
Yes.
Be it a conversation, be it a huge gig, it's a response. I just saw a great quote from Sheila E. talking about funk needs to be funky. And the key to making it funky is the space that you allow between the notes. Because, if you get these guys, it's like a painter knows to put a certain amount of stuff on a canvas, a certain amount of color or depth in a canvas. Then there's certain things that are left alone for imagination or just for the art itself. And she's 100% right, because when it grooves and there's space for bass player to get in, and that's when the real communication happens, I think.
Oh, totally. So how did this come together? How did you write this? And did you journal a lot, or you just had to sit down with somebody and really piece together a lot of stuff? And I love the way the book is put together, because you weave being in COVID and going way back to your childhood and growing up. How did you get all that together, and how did you come up with that strategy to put the
Well,
book together?
Well, I appreciate that, Bob. And I did not come up with that strategy. I just met a gentleman, a wonderful co-writer, Mike Ponce, and he wrote Keith Hernandez's memoir. And I figure, oh, baseball. Baseball to me, everything is sports and music, because I think
Okay.
they go hand in hand. Anything having to do with a team is relevant. So I like this style, and as I said, my wife and I got COVID just around St. Patrick's Day. Now that
Oh
I think of
gosh.
it,
How
which
did
is
that
tomorrow.
happen? Yeah. You get that
Yeah.
in Mexico City on the way back. Oh my gosh.
No, the crazy thing, it wasn't in Mexico. A friend of my wife's, that they went out and everything. This is before we had masks, before we had before there was any
Yeah.
testing, because we got it on, or like I said, around March 17th. We couldn't get tested till her birthday, April 17th, a month later. But my doctor said, "Oh, you got it. You definitely got COVID."
Oh, jeez.
So anyway, we spoke, and Mike and I started speaking probably in April. After that, and I'd call him, and we'd sit down and talk. And I found it like as if I was speaking to a therapist, because he had asked me a question, and it was cathartic. It's
Mm.
like this wash of stuff. And as I mentioned, a musician without the ability to perform it's like you're depriving me of oxygen. So it was a way for me to get back. And to your point, the idea, he kept calling, I never heard the term, but it makes perfect sense, from the contemporary to the past, and then towards at a point maybe look to the future, which is always a scary thought, because it's like I like to stay present as often as possible. But he did a great job. The first thing is, up in the, well, first of all, my greatest thrill, if I may say so, is that Ringo wrote the forward.
It's beautiful
And
forward. Yes.
it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Just a person who changed my life, as the Fab Four did. It changed all of our lives. For him to first of all consider doing it was amazing, and then what he wrote and how he spoke about me, it was just heartwarming. And people have read that. In fact, the drummer of Chuck Berge and Billy's band,
Mhm.
I gave him the book, and he read it. He said, dude, I can't handle it.
You can't
It's
wrap
like,
around your head. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And uh, look, I'm gushing. He calls me on the phone, and I'm still like, "Hi, Richie." It's like, breathe. Don't say anything stupid if you can help. But it's wonderful, and that whole action or interaction between the contemporary and the past. Uh, it led me to realize a lot of things. I think the thing that it led me to realize most of all is my level, or humanity's level of vulnerability,
Yeah.
because that's to me at this point in my life, I'll be 70 in May, and I'm like, okay, what do we do, and how tough do you think you are? And as he's read in the opening about when I met up at Yoko's apartment, and having worked with John, and then seeing John's glasses, it
Oh
was
my
just,
gosh. Yeah.
you talk
Oh my
about
gosh.
this sense of what do they say, of impermanence, because everything could change instantaneously, and that's what I felt most connected to. In fact, a lot of friends or a lot of people who commented on the book, the first thing they say is, "We can't wait for your wife's book to come out because she's like the rock star." And
She is a rock star. Yeah.
well, she's amazing. Look, it'll be 40 years we're married in May.
Wow.
So yeah, hello.
Flies, doesn't it
All these
fly?
things,
Gosh.
yeah, all
Yeah.
these come to mind, and it's overwhelming. I've read it a couple of different times. I'm still waiting to do the audio book because Ringo's already read his part, which I listen to it sometimes like it's him
Yeah.
talking about me.
That's
it's
great.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, you're gonna go into the studio and do an audio version of this?
Yeah, yes. And
Great.
people have said, "Well, who are you going to get to do it?" I said, "I'm thinking about me."
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's my voice, and I think
it
that
is.
Mike did a wonderful job in allowing my voice to come through in the book.
Oh, he did. Yeah, it's very candid. I love it. It's like as if you're speaking to us. So yeah, definitely record that.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Bob.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I love your Ringo story and how you had to be honest and say, "Hey, Ringo, this ain't working." Or I really love that how you have to do it. You got to be honest.
Well, look, I told Paul he was wrong twice.
Yeah.
So,
Told the biggest Beatle. Yeah.
it'd be like you saying, "Yeah, Mark, I'm going to do the interview," and say, "Oh, by the way, I haven't seen your book, and who do you play?" I had an interview with somebody about a month ago talking, and he said, "So, how do I call you? Are you a saxophonist?" I'm like, "Dude, did you even read a bio?"
Got to do the research, right?
Yeah. So with that said, when I went to do the first rehearsal with Ringo, I was way prepared. In fact, I was prepared when I was 15 to be in that band because, well, actually 17, because by the time like 71, Grand Funk was already happening, and Randy
Oh, yeah.
Bachman. So all these great things, but to be around that level of greatness, I had to say in 1967, which I still call the greatest year in rock and roll, in my opinion. If I could be slightly crude, I was 14 and I was getting high and having
Yeah.
sex. So it was great. 14, and that music was
Yeah.
out. And I'll give you four examples. Jimmy put out "Are You Experienced" and "Axis Bold as Love." The
Oh my gosh.
Beatles put out they put out Sergeant Pepper and Magical Mystery Tour. Cream put out Fresh Cream and Disraeli Gears. My dear friend, may he rest in peace, Gary Brooker with Procol Harum put out Whiter Shade of Pale, and not even getting into Felix Cavalieri put out the album Collections, because when
Yes.
I was 14 in '67, we played that entire album. We
Yeah.
played the entire Collections album, so I was prepared, way
That's dope.
prepared for all of this. And I think the most important thing is your attitude and how you approach people. You've read it, and my father said it, and I live by it. You could be confident but not arrogant. You could speak if you have respect for, first of all, for yourself. That respect will always translate, and the person will know that you're respectful, and in turn give it back to you, I believe.
Yeah. And hearing about your scrappy upbringing and how you got instruments like basically they came off the back of a truck.
My Uncle
And you had a
Vinny.
cousin Vinny too. Hey, my cousin Vinny. I mean, that's classic New York. And it's so
Yeah.
inspiring.
And the fact is that my cousin Vinny, he passed away as well, and it's not even I didn't mention that in the book, but excuse me, he was in my first band. We hung out together. His grandmother and my grandmother are sisters, and there's probably 7 other Vinnies in the family. And he took me up to that gig up in the Catskills where I met Bob Livingood, and in turn ended up being in Banff, which ended up working with John Lennon, which ended up at the record plant. I met Mutt Lang, which ended up meeting. It's just the excuse me, I really believe that the most important thing is, again, your presence. And when you do a gig, you never phone it in, because you never know who might be in the audience, or for that matter, you shouldn't do it just because it's the right thing to do. If you call yourself an entertainer or a performer, perform, entertain, do that, and be present. So all these things happen because Vinny drove me up to do this crappy Latin band gig playing bass.
You don't want to hear that stuff again.
Oh man! But the point being, there might come a time when I have to do a gig that, hey, there's going to be plenty of gigs with not the I won't always be playing with Ringo or Billy, or
Right.
There'll be a time when, hey, can you do this gig? And I'll say, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then you get this like, I should have thought this one through, but excuse me, but we do what we do. We do what we do. And your smile says it all. We do what we do.
Oh, it's just, I'm always in awe every single time I see you come out. It's a great team. It really is. I was backstage. I did a package on Mike Del Judas. So that's when I saw you last, was back in 2017 here at SunTrust Field here in Atlanta. And it's like a family. And I think you kind of touch on that in the book, how you're a team, you're a family, you all know your parts, and it's just such a well-oiled machine. I'm so impressed every time I see you go out with Billy or with Ringo. It's just really amazing. I'm always taken aback.
Well, I appreciate that on a number of levels, because first of all, you're 100% right. It's a unit, and I keep making the analogy or the comparison to be it a basketball team or a hockey team or any team, and that carries over to any great organization has to have a great leader. A friend of mine, Ted Leonsis, owns the Washington Capitals, and the point is, you don't get to that point in your life by thinking you know everything. Right. It's the idea of understanding you have to delegate things. Billy is like the greatest at that, because his ego, first of all, he's a tremendous writer. All that goes without saying. But the beauty is that he allows us to be thoroughbreds and not hold us back. He wants us to shine. And look at Michael's spot is tremendous. He's a phenom. It's just incredible. Crystal, myself, we get to step forward, and Billy allows that. They always say, in fact, I just missed a call again. Michael Grizel, our tour manager, says the horse is either a champion or it stinks from the neck back. So the head of the horse, or the head of the organization, knows how to make these things happen. And it is incredible. And people say, well, does it ever get old, and do you ever stand on the side of the stage? I said, first of all, there's 3 levels of the rush. There's you're standing on the side of the stage, and you're all like high-fiving each other. Michael and I are hugging each other and telling each other how, calling each other names, whatever, just getting that last bit of energy out. Again, you got the butterflies are there, so they should be. Then the next level is when the natural starts, da, 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 and the people know it. So it's getting close. It's getting close. So then there's that. Then the lights go out. There's that. And we're going on, and the crowd's got this, it's like this dense, not even pink, like purple noise coming around. But then when the light hits Billy, it explodes. Yeah. And I tell people, if you ever came on the side of the stage, just for a moment, if that doesn't get your adrenaline going, if that doesn't bring your heart rate up, you need to check your pulse, because you might have passed out already.
Exactly. Yeah, it's mesmerizing how he comes on. I love the walk-on music, and just the crowd just roars. How do you come down off of that every night at a Billy Joel show?
It depends. For the most part, I'm driving home, because I like to get home, or I might spend the night in the city. And if we're in the city, there's two 12-passenger vans are like 4 and 6 or 6 and 6, whatever it is, going back to the hotel. And for the most part, we've just won the Super Bowl, if you think about it. In fact, are you familiar with the baseball player Paul O'Neill?
Oh yeah.
Okay, he and I are good friends, and we were in Cincinnati, and Billy was doing, I think, And So It Goes. so it was a solo spot, and I told Paul, I said, come back here behind, at the time, with Liberty's drums. He said, I said, look out there. He goes, whoa, it's amazing. We're at his stadium, because he played for Cincinnati before the Yankees. I said, you know the only difference between when we play here and you play here? He goes, what's that? I said, we never lose. And he said, oh, but he knew I was right, because we get out there and we always win. We always win. And if anyone had an off night, if that might be the case, there's everyone vibing each other up. There are nights when Crystal might have a moment that she needs some love, or I need it, and she's there to give it, and I'm there to give it to her. I mean, I could touch her every night.
Yeah.
And every time I go down to at the moment in an Italian restaurant, Michael and I, Billy's line before, I'll meet you anytime you want. And I walk up to Michael and said, do you not understand anytime? His line is, what's the holdup? So we do these De Niro bits between each other, and it's just this great family. It's fun. Yeah. Because if you're not having a good time, how could the audience possibly have a good time?
Yeah, you all had a saying way back in the day before this band. It was like, suck my wad, $5. I love it. I was like, it's so really nice, and it does it breaks through, and it makes it so much more comfortable for all of you to just really feel your best on stage.
Absolutely, Bob. We do that exactly. It's just fun. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's the whole house comes together on Like And So It Goes, and you guys just did that at SoFi Stadium and had Stevie Nicks join in, and it's a moment there. It's like everybody comes together. You got 70,000 people in there.
I got to tell you, that show, and there are people. I felt from day one it was going to be magic. I felt it was going to be magical, because her catalog, all that's gone on. And having lost Christy McVie, Billy hasn't had a record out, and it's coming on 30 years now.
Oh my gosh, that went fast.
Stevie's last album, her solo record, I mean, aside from Rumors, was 77, and her last solo record, I think, was 87 or 88. Is that right?
Yeah, it's about right. Yeah.
So we're talking about
35 years. Yeah.
Who collectively haven't had records for 65 years.
They just don't need to write anymore, right?
Well, that's Billy's theory. Well, who are we going to compare me to? My old self? And I mean, Tony Bennett refers to him as the walking American songbook. How much better can you possibly do than that? It's amazing. Look, I speak of him. The point is, with both Billy and Ringo, I work with them. I don't work for them. I don't feel like, it's a job. It's this group effort is amazing. He just makes it easy. Yeah. I mean, I think you know this, but I think everyone should know this. Throughout the pandemic, Billy paid us as if nothing happened.
Yeah, Billy, I was saying that. That's amazing.
The band, the crew, the truck drivers, everybody. Yeah. And people have this like, oh, he could afford it. That's true. And so could all these other performers. But he did it.
Yeah.
Did it. And that's the line in the sand.
Yeah.
And I speak of him with great humility that I'm still there, and pride to be part of this thing. But he's a friend, and he's a guy's guy. He
really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Totally. He seems like he's his own worst critic. That's the whole thing.
No doubt.
You don't need the critics. He's hard on himself.
He can't even take a compliment. It's almost like, hey, Billy, I had this. It's like, stop kvetching. You were great. It's funny, but he's exactly that. He's his own worst enemy. And I don't know if I could do this. And they'll go out and it's almost like, I don't know if you remember, but the Willie Mays story, that he got hit by a pitch, and he hobbled down to first base, and then he stole second and stole third. So I got this. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's incredible. And he's 73. He'll be 74 in May. Okay. Yeah. And he's still rocking it. I mean, the other side is Ringo's 83, right? He'll be 83 great. In July. He's spectacular.
Oh my gosh.
He's got 3 different trainers. One of them is a cardio one is a stretching like yoga, and one is a like physical. He does some bands and stuff, but he's in amazing shape. He also is very critical of his diet. He's it's pretty amazing when I look at the guy's 13 years older than me. Like, wow, and out there, come on, man! It's like, he's so into it. He's doing jumping jacks at the end of the set, at the end of the show.
Yeah,
and this whole thing, Peace and Love, it's for real.
Yeah, he does believe it.
No one exemplifies that gratitude and that sense of empathy and compassion for people. I've never met anyone quite like that. I was blessed. My father was very much like that. He was very caring, and both my parents. I think about some of the things that I hear people say about their past and their backgrounds. I have not one day to be. I have nothing to be upset about. I'm possibly the luckiest person you'll ever do a Zoom with. And I know it, and that's part of the whole thing in itself. Being aware that you are blessed, because people who are blessed, or people who have all these things, they squander the real value of it, or the real joy, by the next million, or the next record, or the next. It's like, dude,
be grateful.
Be grateful. And Ringo's one of his famous lines, or something I live by, where he said, "You breathe in faith and breathe out fear." It's like yoga. It's just all, and it's all true. He's I mean, look, who am I talking about? Two of the biggest, greatest artists ever, and they're my friends. So
and one from the greatest band that will probably ever be, and should be. And I hope nobody ever eclipses the Beatles. It is just perfect.
No one can for two reasons. A, there's no talent out there like that. I got to say, look, there's some people that I love. People ask who I'd like to, like, I love Dave Grohl. I love certain artists who are just tremendous, but no one will sustain. We're talking about, February 9th, 1964. Next February, it will be 60 years that I saw that show, and I could read. In fact, on the way home from LA, on the Delta flight, I watched A Hard Day's Night, and I'm like, you're still laughing, and the guys are still. You wish that you could have been around, and they joke about how they run away because they never. Ringo always used to say that I never had a life in that period of time. There were four of us, two of us in two different rooms. We had to go from here to here to here to here, and to your point again, no one will ever eclipse that landmark. But I'll tell you another thing that I'm involved in. No one will ever get a run at a place like, or let alone the Madison Square. We call it the Madison Square Dinner Theater because we're there so often. But
the house band. You are definitely the house band.
But no one will ever think about it. Because Fish goes in there and plays 14 nights. They do what they do. But it's not a run of it's not a continuum. I don't know anybody who has the legs or the staying power to draw people back. I remember Billy saying, well, as long as there's butts and seats, I'll do it. He was probably thinking, we'll get 2 or 3 years, maybe 4. It's the 9th year.
Yeah, who knew? It's really amazing. I think there are a lot of people out there like saying, I never got around to Billy Joel. I never got, like, people, my age or older, even younger. It's like, I just never got around it. And they're still filling the seats. And look how many years now.
Well, you see kids, you see grandchildren like 11, 12 years old with their grandparents or their parents or whatever the case may be. And Billy, there's a couple of kids, Billy buys the front 2 rows.
Yeah.
You know that, right?
Yes. It's very good.
Which is brilliant because there are people, in fact, the other night, there were 5 levels at SoFi. So that he got people from the 5th tier to come down.
Wow.
People are out of their minds because they came from having a nosebleed to coming down to literally being right there. And once in a while at the Garden, he'll be singing a song, and I'm looking at it, and I see like some 12-year-old, 14-year-old girl. She's singing the words to, not We Didn't Start the Fire, but the early stuff, like The Entertainer. How could she know? Her parents might not have been married when this song came out. So it's a it's a it's a phenomenon that I'm blessed to be a part of. I mean, you can hear it. I talk about it. Uh, it's Does it get old? Hell no. It's fresh every day. We want to get better and better. And I make because people ask me questions. You've been in, God, it must be like 7 or 8 iterations. Is that the right word? I always worry about
Yeah,
stumbling.
that's about right. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The band, yeah.
Of this band. And they say, well, how does this band, because Liberty DeVito and you have a new drummer, or somebody, this is the words they say, somebody replaced, Chuck replaced Liberty DeVito. I said, Chuck is a spectacular drummer. No one replaced Liberty DeVito. I did not replace Richie Cannata. I am now the saxophone player, but I bow and I play those parts. You'll never hear me come out and play something else on ba ba da ba da da. That's how it goes. And being respectful to that is what it is. The difference between that first band and every iteration of the bands we've been in to this band now. The first band was like a 1970 Buick with that big steering wheel, a V8 engine with the roll down windows, and you had to roll the windows down because it was so damn hot in the summer. This band now is that same V8 engine, or maybe a V12, and it's got power steering, electric windows, and air conditioning. It's got everything, all the bells and whistles. It's got all the power, but it's got every nuance covered. I mean, Billy will turn and start doing a Hendrix tune, and he'll say the first verse, and I know all the words. That's what I know all the words to all the songs. And then he'll take it over to Michael, and Michael will sing rock and roll, and now Crystal's singing River Deep Mountain High. It's fantastic. It's the sense of, hey, go ahead, you go now, and he means it, because a lot of guys kind of half mean it. Oh, I want my band to shine, but not too much, no light. So I want to keep my spotlight on me. He's very cool with it. In fact, it's almost like they probably want to see him more, or whatever. She's cuter than I am. You know what I mean?
He does. He gives you all the spotlight. He introduces everybody. For those who haven't seen Billy Joel in concert, he introduces all of you. If you took the lead on New York State of Mind, he introduces you. He introduces Tommy Burns after Allentown, does the guitar part, and it's really nice. And then, he gives the mic over to Mike to do, a Puccini.
And how fantastic. I mean, every night I'm on the side station. Son of a bitch. It's that good. It's that good. And Billy's like, whoa, guy. And he means it. Because some guys say, hey, it's my guy. And then they go home and what an ass. He loves the people in this band. Yeah. He's connected to it all.
Yeah, and not just have you been with Billy Joel, but you've worked with Hall & Oates, Simon and Garfunkel. The list goes on and on. I mean, you talk about how you were involved with Peter Gabriel for the big hit Sledgehammer. Peter Gabriel's ready to go out on tour again.
I'm getting tickets. I can't wait.
Oh, I gotta see that.
He's amazing. In fact, have you seen him live?
No, that's the one I haven't seen live yet. I'd love to see him.
He's my wife's favorite performer and artist. In fact, the story I went into in the book, but the real story, the real trick of the story is, I was with Foreigner on the tour, but it might have been Agent Provocateur or Inside Information. I can't remember which. It was 86.
Yeah,
I believe.
Inside.
And we were playing in New Jersey, but the trucks were parked. No, we were playing at the Garden, but the trucks were parked in New Jersey because they had to get the spot, whatever. And our gear was in there. So I'm home for 3 days. Okay, now we have 86. We had our son was 2.5 years old, maybe, or just about 2. So I'm home for 3 days. My wife is thinking, oh, we're going to spend some time together. Get the phone call from this guy, Jimmy Phelan, who I'd met years prior at Trax doing a little gig. Hey, man, it's can you come down to the power station? Yeah, Jimmy. Well, I'm kind of busy. I got 3 days. I'm recording Peter Gabriel's new record. Boom. Call the guy Peter Wiltz. Hey, can you get my gear? And Sandra's like, you're kidding me, right? I said, no, sweetheart, it's Peter Gabriel. She goes, okay, I love Peter Gabriel, but you're only home 3 days. All of that happens. I do the gig, come home that night with my tail between my legs, maybe some flowers or whatever I could, some branch, an olive branch, and it goes smoothly. So I go back out on the road with Foreigner. Fast forward about 4 months later, I'm back home driving. My wife and Dario, our son, is in the back seat, and my wife says, "That's our favorite song. I love that song." And Dario is like bopping to it. I said, "That's the song that you wanted to kill me when I wanted to leave the house." So I always say, therein lies the power of radio. So,
Oh gosh, yeah. How is it when you first hear yourself on the radio? It's got to
well,
be amazing. Terrestrial radio.
well, the first time I heard Urgent and Jukebox Hero, because Mutt, Lou, myself, and Ian Lloyd sang all the backgrounds on that whole record. The first time I heard those two songs in particular, and Waiting for a Girl Like You, I was in California, San Francisco, and it was just like, it's real. Because I'd been in bands, I played cover bands, but I was also in a band, Tycoon. We had a moderate hit, and that came and went. In fact, the band lasted about as long as the record went around twice. But to hear Urgent and to hear my bits before Junior Solo and to hear Jukebox Hero, and it's one thing to be in the studio and you have these huge speakers and they're doing the playbacks, which is great. But it's another thing entirely when you're in a car and all the compression and you're in a car hearing yourself on the radio for the first time. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget. In fact, it was in a cab and I told the guy, "Turn that up." And it was like, that's me on the radio. But it was crazy. It was crazy good how the experience, it's transforming.
Yeah, it's a labor of love, and especially recording Foreigner 4. What was that experience like getting into the studio with them? And you have some interesting stories about how they played foosball and things
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
it was crazy. I had just done a gig at this club in Manhattan called Tracks, where everyone had played, and you did auditions for record companies. You did all these different things. And one night, the night that the No Nukes concert was happening, I'd already played there with a bunch of people. Bet Sussman, who was Whitney Houston's MD, Yogi Horton, may he rest in peace. Jimmy Rip, who'd been out, he did the Killers album. I can't think of the Killers' name. Jerry Lee Lewis, he was out. Jimmy was out with Mick Jagger for a long time. Anyway, I just gotten done doing the gig, and I get home, and Jimmy Polis, the guy who owns JP's and Track, says, "Mark, you got to come back." I lived in the 6th floor walk-up at the time. I said, "Man, I'm kind of beat." He goes, "The No Nukes concert just got let out." And lo and behold, I got to sing background vocals with Bonnie Raitt, James Taylor, and Bet Sussman. The three of us sang some harmony. Jackson Browne was there, Russ Kunkel, Bob Glob, from all these great West Coast players. And another time, I was playing another gig, came home, walked up the 6th floor, walk up, and the phone rings. "Hello, Marcus, it's Mutt." I'm like, "Hey man, what's happening?" "Oh, it's I'm actually recording tonight. I'm wondering if you could pop down Electric Lady Studios." I'm like, "Shag, can we do it another time?" He goes, "Actually, I'm recording Foreigner's new record and we need I said, boom, hung up the phone. I was in a cab and gone. So as the story goes in the book, I get to meet Lou and Mick, and they have drinks and carrying on, playing football. The first thing I do, I get in there and the horn is still kind of warm. So I play the first time, we were still getting a headphone mix. And don't think about it, just react. I hit it's just a break, 4 measures and then 8 measures. And that's all it was, total of 12 measures of music. Yeah, it's 4 measures and 8 measures. I had to get into my head. But it's just myself and Dennis Elliott. So I did that, and I'm still getting a headphone mix, and it wasn't right. It was, whatever it was. So they come in, Mick and Lou. "Well, why don't you, I'd like you to try this and try that." And I go and start playing, and they run off. There's a bottle of vodka. They go off, and they're playing foosball again. So the joke was, vodka foosball take, vodka foosball take. This goes on for like 4 hours. Now it's about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and my lip is like, "Down to here at this point." And Mutt calls Mick and Lou in. He says, Until I can hear something. And he presses the playback button. And and Mick says, that's fantastic. It's like Morse code. It's perfect. It's perfect. And Mutt says, that's the first thing he played when he walked in.
Classic story.
And not unlike Sledgehammer, which is the same thing. But the most important thing to that, to our conversation earlier, is communication. What was I doing? I was reacting. I didn't have a preconceived idea. The first time I heard those both huge songs, I played something that was a reaction. In fact, Jimmy Braylow, a co-writer and producer I worked with forever, he always says, buddy, once you played it and somebody else is telling you how to play that part you played in this measure, he goes, it's gone. You're more than likely not going to get the magic. And if they, back in the day when Mutt was brilliant, he would never lose that first take. Think about it. That could have been gone. And I could have not been asked to come back. Then he told them, oh, by the way, he sings, he plays guitar, he plays keyboard, blah, blah, blah. He was my what's the word? My advocate for the whole, he championed me getting in that band. Next thing I know, I'm singing Jukebox Hero with Mutt Lange, Lou Gramm, and Ian Lloyd. Remember Ian Lloyd from Stories?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, so the four of us are in there singing, and I'm like, really cool. So, but I have Mutt to thank for all of that.
Yeah, it all comes around though, because then Lou Gramm and Mick Jones joined you all in concert at the Garden.
Yes.
How was that night? That must have been very interesting. How somebody comes back, just like if Mellencamp comes back, Crystal worked with Mellencamp back in the day.
Right. It was amazing because Lou had been through brain tumor, and I hadn't seen Mick, because I always call Lou on his birthday and I call Mick on his birthday, and very rarely get a call back. I'm not upset, but I'm just saying this is how things go, and make sure this is. Could I get this as spam? So
lots of spam, yeah.
I'm sorry. So we've spoken about it because there was going to be a documentary. The Foreigner did a documentary soon after that, and they were asking Billy to come speak at I think it was Electric Lady, because that's where they did 4, and it was kind of like Billy saying, "Hey, this is great. Do you think they would come and play?" And the only one who would really had the connection with him was myself. So I got in touch with the people. I think it might have been at the time Robert Irvine, may he rest in peace. There's so many people. I hate saying that so often.
Yeah.
But so we got in touch, and I can't remember the gentleman who's now their manager. It'll come to me probably once we're done. But anyway, I was in communication with them, and we figured out, could we do 2 songs? I think we did Urgent and was it Feels Like the First Time? Or Hot Blooded? I'm trying to think what the second song was.
Yeah, it's all over YouTube if you want to look those up. It's always 2 songs.
Definitely Urgent, and getting to sing, because before they got there, we had to run through the paces. So I sang Urgent, and everybody said, "Oh, that's really cool. That sounds great." So yeah, it's really great. And then Lou got up like, screw him. Lou Gramm just sang it. It was like all over. He has one of the most identifiable voices ever in rock and roll. And when he was in his prime, the range was spectacular. And singing backgrounds with he and Bobby Mayo, may he also rest in peace, was an incredible joy. I mean, not to get too visual here, but after a gig, we take a shower, and 3 of us do real quick rinse, and all of a sudden we break into a Beatles song, 3-part harmony. I took the Paul, or no, Lou took the Paul, I took the John, and Bobby. It was incredible. Just 3-part harmony in a shower, and with 2 of my dearest friends ever. It was just unbelievable.
Greatest acoustics in the shower. Break out the Beatles.
Amen. Oh,
amazing. Saying you work with Paul McCartney at Ringo's, was it his 70th birthday?
At Radio City. Yeah, Joe Walsh calls me and says, "Hey, Mark, Paul wants to sing. Paul." I said, "Yeah, Joe, I know Paul. He wants to do birthday." So as the story goes, I'm sure you read it. We run through it one time, and
Love it.
Paul didn't play through the bass part, so you had to correct him. But you're talking about Joe Walsh, Rick Derringer, Edgar Winter, myself, and Greg Bissonette, and I'm correcting Paul.
Yeah.
But again, that's what I was asked to do. Joe said, Could you run the band through the paces?" I said, "Sure." So he did it. The first time he forgot, it goes, the bass plays through. He didn't play through. So I corrected him. "Oh, thanks a lot, mate." Second time, after that, 7, 8, 2 measures. And he, "Yes, we're going to a pod." But he came in 2 measures early. So everyone's like, "We're done. Just don't say anything." It was great. By the way, Paul, you came in 2 measures early. And at this point, I'm sure Joe and Rick Derringer are thinking, we're all going to get cut. So Paul graciously turns to me and says, I haven't done this in a long time. He goes, "I'll tell you what, mate, we'll play it again. This time I'll play the bass and you sing it and I'll sort it out." So the third time we're playing Birthday, Paul's playing bass. Well, I should say Paul is my bass player while I'm singing Birthday. It was one of the most surreal moments in my life. And it's crazy. It's just crazy to think that by doing the right thing, things happen. And if you don't do the right thing, I mean, if I let that slip through the cracks,
Yeah, you couldn't live with yourself. Yeah.
I would feel terrible. And if it came off, and if I didn't tell Paul, if he played just it knew it, because that bass plays through, and it's that Hofner.
Yeah.
I call it the Mona Lisa. He's waving his bass guitar. There's a great photograph that Rob Shanahan took. I just bought for my friend John Grado's birthday. It's Ringo and Paul just before they're about to bow, and Paul's got, I call it the Mona Lisa, up in his arms.
Oh yeah.
Waving it. But you can't put a value on that guitar.
Yeah. You can't. He'd started, I think, one of his tours. Yeah, there was a shadow of him and him holding the Hofner. I was like,
yeah.
Oh, it's iconic. It totally is. But you're more than just a sax player. I mean, you're multi-instrumentalist and you sing, and you came out with a solo album almost 10 years ago, 2014's Common Bond.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a
yes.
beautiful album.
Thank you.
It's in my iTunes. I run to that.
Thank you. And I got and Ringo, once again, Jimmy Braylauer, the producer and co-writer of most of the songs. We'd already done the track. The track was done to a bunch of guitars this guy Johnny Gale played, and then we put the rhythm section together as the Conti brothers, Jeff Gazee, and Charlie Drayton was playing drums, and it was great. But there was something about the track that needed some kind of it needed a swing, it needed a shuffle. And Jimmy says, "Hey buddy, why don't you call your friend the drummer from England?" I said, No. He said, "Buddy, you ask him." He says, "No, we're right where we are." If he said, lo and behold, I said, "Richie, I have a song I think you'd play great." "Oh, send it to me. I'll play along." So he's banging the drums. And now we have Ringo Starr playing drums on the song called Money, Money, Money. But nobody played to Ringo.
Yeah.
So how crazy is that? So again, Jimmy Braylauer said, "Buddy, we got to get somebody to play along with Ringo." So we called Will Lee from Letterman's. Well, Will Lee.
Very well,
Will
yeah.
just his own person. And said, "Well, there's a couple of songs I want to play. One song, Lorraine, which is the first song on the album." I said, "There's another song I'd like you to play." "Well, what's the other song?" I said, "It's called Money, Money, Money." I'm like, "Yeah." Okay. He said, "Okay." I said, "Ringo played drums." He goes, "When could you be here?" It's like, sure enough. And what they did together was just brilliant, because you finally had a drummer and the bass player playing together. Because up until then, it was piecemeal. And Jimmy's just brilliant. He knows how to ask the right. You can only ask a question, and the answer is either yes or no. "Do you want to do you want to have an interview?" "Yeah." You can say, "Mark Rivera, nah, don't want to do it." These are choices we make. But the fact being that it worked out brilliantly. I got Billy to play on my version of Spanish Castle Magic. And Billy said, "You mean like he was playing all this stuff? It's like Hush." I said, "Exactly. It's like Hush by Deep Purple." And he played incredibly well on it. Yeah. It's just crazy how well he played. And Nils Lofgren's on the record. Andy York from Mellencamp's band, and my dear friend Steve Lukather played on what I think is a very spiritual moment, the song Rise, written by Karen Mano. And again, just sent the tracks out, and Luke played like only Luke can play. So
Yeah. You have great friends on that one. Yeah,
I,
definitely.
I
Yeah.
have wonderful friends, Bob. I really do.
Totally blessed. Absolutely. Yeah. Money, money, money. One of the coolest songs ever. Little Steven in his
Yes,
underground.
yes,
He picked that as the coolest song in 2014. It really does it. It's just pure magic. So that wraps around Little Steven. Talk about that. Springsteen showed up at the 100th Billy show at
yeah,
MSG. And
yeah,
so you took the sax part on the iconic song Born to Run. How does
yeah.
that feel? Oh my gosh.
It's like it's really it puts you in a different place, because I was actually at the record plant cleaning up garbage when they first recorded the record.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
in 70? What year was that? 70,
75? Was it
75,
1975 Born to Run came out?
76. Thank you. 75, 76. Because my friend Jimmy Iovine, who I grew up with playing in rival bands, he was the engineer on that at the time. So I'm cleaning up garbage, because I was living at the record plant. I mean, literally living in the we call it the bomb room. And I go back and forth, and I'm walking by, and I'm listening, and I heard Clarence play that solo. I was in they were downstairs in Studio A, and I'm like, wow. And fast forward to Billy's 100th show, I'm sharing the stage, and again, people say, "Oh, you took over for Clarence." No, no one takes over for Clarence. No one will ever. And just to have to breathe the same air, to be in the same room with these people is, you just hope some molecules or some fairy dust, like like when Tinker hit the button of the in the Wonderful World of Color. Remember that?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Well, the
I
crazy
remember
thing,
that.
we didn't have a color TV at my house, so when she did it, was like, what the hell's the big deal? Then I went to my Aunt Grace's house. I went to my Aunt Grace's house, and oh, that's what they're talking about.
I do remember the tubes in the RCA set, and those would go bad, and my parents were like, it's leave it in black and white. I'm like, we gotta get the guy out here. We gotta fix this thing.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Where did you
gives away
grow
the
up?
age. Pardon?
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, the birth of rock and roll. That's
There you go.
yeah. I
Yeah.
remember every Friday, this DJ named Kid Leo played Born to Run, and that's what was
Wow.
my exposure to Springsteen, who was a god in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
Cleveland does. I got to say, Cleveland's one of my favorite places to play. It's
Oh, totally. Great venues there too. I
yeah,
guess the
great.
last time, yeah, you guys have been there a few times.
Yeah, a bunch of times. I've been there with a bunch of different people. But I remember when with Foreigner about 1985, Joe Walsh was opening up for us, and that's where Joe spent a lot of time. Joe with the James Gang and just this whole scene, and that was the last show on a particular tour, if I remember right. And where did we go? Swingos.
Swingo's the classic place. I think Billy's called that out in concert a few times. Yeah, which is featured in that 2000 film about the Rolling Stone writer, Almost Famous. And
Almost Famous, exactly.
Yeah,
right. Swingos, right. So,
I remember it, and I remember it towards the end, and that classic logo, which is so dated. But I remember Swingos. Yeah, Led Zeppelin was there. People, those guys trashed the rooms.
everyone
Keith
was
Moon,
there.
didn't he trash the rooms there?
Yeah, of course he did. If he was in a room, it was crap. No doubt about it. Crazy
Yeah.
stuff.
First time I saw you in concert was at the Coliseum, which was actually in Richfield, Ohio, like well outside of Cleveland, and that was on the Innocent Man tour. I remember that very well.
And if I remember right, in fact, you're gonna laugh. I actually was taking notes for an interview I did a while ago. This will blow your mind if it's still here, because I remember talking about in Cleveland, and it was did you say the Rich?
Yeah, the Coliseum in Richfield, Ohio, which was basically halfway between Akron and Cleveland. They thought back in the day, that's a great place to put a big arena. People from Akron and Cleveland would come there.
Yeah, well, I played there in '81 with Foreigner.
Yeah,
same arena. '81 with Foreigner and '82 with Billy, because no, I'm sorry, with Billy.
Yeah, March of
'Cause
'84.
Yeah, because '82 we were doing the Nylon Curtain tour, and it was a, a great record, one of my favorite Billy Joel records. But it wasn't received like The Innocent Man, or for that matter, like not like The Stranger. It was like, you know, a flop by Billy standards. He only sold like 2 million records. You know,
It's crazy.
people would get their eye teeth now for like, you know, 200,000 records. So
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy thing because he was so well established by then, and he put
yeah,
so much blood, sweat, and tears into that. It was his
you
Sergeant Pepper's.
you
And
couldn't be more correct. It was this, and the songs that were on there was so. I mean, uh, "Goodnight Saigon" was this just. It was so much. You talk about put so much of your heart and soul into something. "Goodnight Saigon," Allentown, which was like a tip of the hat to the working class. "A Room of Our Own," which is a total John Cop. And then my favorite song on the record, people don't think of this, but "Where's the Orchestra?" At the end of the whole thing,
the closer
was just such a brilliant piece of music, and it was so poorly received. So
it's crazy. It's crazy. I read about that in Phil Ramone's book and how that went down. Yeah, yeah. I was like, oh well, you know, we had two somewhat big singles. Then you went into Innocent Man, and were you there for those recording sessions? You're on the back cover.
I'm on the whole record. In fact, I played the triangle on Innocent Man. I sang all the backgrounds on Uptown Girl. Myself, Eric Troyer, and Rory Dodd sang all the backgrounds on Uptown Girl and Tell Her About It. And the two of the greatest moments in the studio were when we recorded Tell Her About It. Billy sang live Tell Her About It and Easy Money. There were like 14 people in the room, and Phil Ramone, again, genius, said, "Now let's do this live." I got this. There were 3 guitars, 2 keyboards. Richard T. and I believe Leon Pendarvis played B3. Doug played bass, and there were 6 horns. Myself, Michael Brecker, David Sanborn, Ronnie Cooper, 4 saxophones, John Faddis, and I can't remember the last trumpet player. But we played that thing live, and I'm really not a good reader, so I was like, "Oh crap!" So I, again, shed, but nobody's looking. Billy's in the booth singing, and the whole band, 14 people, I think, about 12 or 14 players, crushed it. 2 takes, done. And I think the only reason we took a second take was just for safety. I think it might even be the first take, and same thing with Easy Money. Just killing it. And speaking of like great performances on that record, the song "And So It Goes," Billy wrote in '83. And Phil Ramone, that's crap. Well, why don't you go back and write a real song? It turns out he writes, I think he wrote Uptown Girl and I can't remember the second song, but he came in with his notepad and was like, "I'm going to show you." And I'm sorry. This was still for The Innocent Man. He came in, he wrote "Leave a Tender Moment Alone" and one other song. I can't remember what the second song was. But the point I'm going to make here is "Leave a Tender Moment Alone." After that weekend, after Phil said, "That's a piece of crap, why don't you write a real song?" Billy sits at the piano, and they had the drapes, the packing blankets covering the piano for isolation, and his microphone. Liberty's playing like it's practically just a piano vocal. Billy played that song from start to finish, 1 take. That's the vocal you hear on the record. That's the piano part that you hear on that record. And I think it's one of the most beautiful. The chord changes, the bridge is a masterpiece. I think it's one of his best bridges ever. He said, he'll say, "Yeah, that was a good one." It's like, really?
Yeah,
really,
exactly.
But
yeah,
that song, "Leave a Tender Moment Alone," that's one of my probably top 5 Billy records. I mean, my favorite one is still "This Is the Time," because it's so relevant now more than ever.
Oh yeah, and, definitely.
I've always said,
alone.
"I'll leave a tender moment alone." This is the time. I was asked about lyrics and stuff like that. I said, if I wrote "But holding you close is like holding the summer sun," I would have said, I'm done here.
Yeah.
I could call it a day, and it's just one of the many lines. It's his mind and how it works. It's a crazy thing. I mean, he'll fool around and just make fun of his songs or just change lyrics. And it's like, well, he and Tommy Burns, they have this mind. I don't know, it just goes, and it's something to watch. It really is.
Yeah. Innocent Man took 2 weeks to record. It's just like
About maybe say,
yeah.
we think. I think it took 2 months total, but that's everything.
That's post-production.
Yeah, and the last session that I did, I was doing some percussion, and I'm pretty sure it was just percussion. I think I'd done all the horns, but I played some maracas or something, I don't know, and I left the next day to get married. So I had to be finished by a certain time because the wedding was scheduled May 21st. I kind of had to and I got married in Switzerland. So I had to get my butt in gear, get home, and get up the next day. It was talking about by the skin of your teeth.
Oh, for sure. So it goes on. You still have the residency every month at Madison Square Garden with Stevie Nicks for a while now. It's good.
Yeah.
They're adding more and more dates.
Yeah. And look, I can't see him just saying at some point it will be done, but I mean, we're at like 88 or 89 shows. I'd be shocked if we didn't do 100 or go on from there. It's all his call. It's all, I always tell him my dance card's free. If you need something, just call me. But we have 9 shows on the books for this year with Stevie Nicks already. We've already done the one. There are 8 more, and I'll tell you, if you get a chance to see that, it's tremendous. We started to talk about it before. Stevie's band is fantastic. Waddy Wachtel on guitar. They play. She's got 2 background singers, and it's got this vibe. And Steve Cohen, our lighting designer, has these 4 massive screens, and the stuff that Stevie's got in there, it's all this. It's first of all, it's hippie, trippy stuff, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's perfect.
The very last song is Landslide.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I saw that clip.
And what she did, and what she paid tribute to Christy, there wasn't a dry eye. Everybody's like, oh my, it was, yeah. And it is. If you get a chance, I'll tell everyone who's out there, if you get a chance, this is 2 people who haven't put records out as long as we're saying, and they're performing. The bands and the production. Also, Brian Ruggles, the greatest ears in the business. He's got a lot of power for these outdoor stadiums. It sounds unbelievable.
He could work these rooms as big as SoFi Stadium. I mean, I just saw him at. I saw you guys in November at Mercedes-Benz Stadium here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And you guys could work with any room. Brian is definitely a genius. That is a challenging room, just like SoFi. It's huge. Yeah. It's tough acoustics. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Billy was like saying, "Hey, can y'all hear me back there?" I don't know if he was used to that room.
Yeah, he kept saying, "What does it sound like when I speak?" Because he hears the echo. And everyone's like, "You're fine." He said, but again, he's that guy. He thinks about, is this going to be all right? It's going to be great. They're. You know why? You know why it's great? Because of the prophetic line, and you know what that is. Because you know that it's Because you know that it's me they've been coming to see, to forget about for a while. And at this point in our lives, at this point in humanity, we have a lot to forget about. Through COVID, through all these, the war, it's just incredible. I won't get too heavy, but the greed and the things that are going on in life, and the people are just hurting. That when they come out and see him, it's almost like, it's like they're bathed in this good time. It's entertainment. And every one of his songs, people come up at the end of the night, and I hear the same story, and I'm always like, yeah, I know what you mean. I have to keep it fresh, because they'll say Billy's song such and such. It's like a 3-minute snapshot of my life, and I've heard that so many times. But Of course they're
Yeah.
right, because to me, Rubber Soul or
Yeah.
Magic, any one of those great, Revolver, which is my favorite.
I
Those are,
love that new mix. It's amazing. I have
yeah,
that.
yeah. So my point is, those are my snapshots, and through like the 60s and 70s, that's where I was coming up. Billy's music is great, and I learned about it. I didn't have any Billy Joel records when I first did the
Yeah.
audition. Yeah, it's just how it is. But
Isn't
I've
that
gone
funny?
to,
Yeah. Yeah. You knew about
and
Piano Man. You knew about that stuff, but it was like you just, it's funny in these businesses, especially in the arts, you fell into it. It's just like
yes,
you knew somebody who knew somebody. I mean, you wound up where you did.
it's exactly that. And the crazy thing is, as I was going through for the audition, I listened like, the stuff is actually really, really good. He's a tunesmith, a wordsmith. He's just because you forget about, you think about it. The Piano Man is a limerick, and you think, oh, it's kind of catchy, tricky. But then when you hear songs like Leave It 10 a Moment Alone, because I was listening to, no, not Leave It 10 a Moment, I was listening to Scandinavian Skies, or anything off of the Nylon Curtain. It's like, this stuff is deep. This guy is, that's what those Piano Man freaks were talking about. And it is that. He's that good. So it's,
Awesome.
it's just a
Yeah.
crazy world, Bob.
It is. It is. And we try to forget about life for a while and we come in and you all entertain us and we do. We forget about it. It's crazy now. And I just, we all worry about the future. But it's great to go see a Billy Joel show. And you're also with Ringo. How many tours have you done with Ringo? It seems like a dozen or so.
I've done about 8 or 10 that I've actually physically played on, but I've been involved in every one since '95. So I mean, every iteration, every band, that every guy who's been in there. This current band is fantastic. I love Luke, and Greg Bizinet is like one of my favorite musicians in the world. He's Ringo's right hand, or left hand if you look on stage, but he's Ringo's go-to guy. The band is fantastic, but I still have to say that one of the greatest joys in my life was being the musical director for the second band that I played in 1997, which was Peter Frampton, Jack Bruce, Gary Brooker, and Simon Kirke, and myself. And the songs were from Do You Feel Like I Do, I Feel Free, Sunshine of Your Love, Whiter Shade of Pale. In fact, a quick story about Whiter Shade of Pale. I went there as a musical director saying, oh, we're going to run through Whiter Shade of Pale now. And Gary Brooker, who calls everybody a nautical term, he goes, oh, Stoker, you're going to play the organ on that one. I'm like, oh, crap. I'm going to play that Hammond B3 part. So I said, well, let's do Conquistador today because I'll brush up on it. I'd never played it in my life. I got a keyboard in the room, and for 6 hours, I shedded that part. And every night, it'd be coming up, and it's like that little rascals, learn that poem. And I'd be thinking, having a great show, but I got to get the end of the show, I got to play that song. And every night I nailed it, I have to say. And every night Gary would put his arm around me. How about Mark Rivera on the organ? I'm like, what an absolute joy to play a Hammond B3 and hear his voice. I heard it in the monitors, but I also heard him acoustically because I sat 2 feet away from him, and you could hear me. We're talking about 1967, and that was an incredible group of guys, and there's a picture of them back there. It's still one of my greatest joys of all time.
Yeah, Cream, one of the best groups of all time too. Disraeli Gears. Oh my gosh, what a great album, Fresh Cream. And then another one of your inspirations, Jeff Beck. And just
Oh man,
seeing you guys do that tribute to Jeff Beck was just really
oh,
sweet.
I was so sad to hear him pass in January. And also in the book, you saw the band that I was in with Mick and Jagger. It
Yeah.
was like, I told my wife, I'm gonna be a rock star. I'm gonna be with Mick Jagger and Jeff Beck. I gotta buy a new pair of leather pants. And she'd go, if that's what you think. It's almost like, yeah, go ahead, dream on, little boy. So
At least you got to, be there with Mick Jagger. I mean, come on, gosh, it doesn't get any
was
better.
Mick, and I was with Jeff Beck. I was like maybe 5-6 feet away from his amplifier, and it was spectacular. Mick and Doug Wimbish played bass. to think about that, to think about all the different things. And that's something someone said. If you hadn't been the sideman, if I was in a band, in just one band,
Yeah.
there's probably no chance that I could have had all these opportunities to
So
have
true.
been a part of all these things. So it's a double. It's, oh, you're just a sideman. Yeah, but I'm a sideman. It's like, to who? And
Yeah.
along with whom? So
Great
very,
stories. Get that book, Sideman in Pursuit of the Next Gig. It's available everywhere. I got
yeah,
that on Nook. You can get it hard copy, Barnes and Noble, all those places.
or Amazon. Yeah, just look. Most importantly, Bob, I appreciate the fact that, aside from the fact that you read it, I really am very grateful that you dug it and it moved you, because that's the point of doing something. Not unlike a song, it's supposed to move you, and it is. I did bear a lot of my soul. There were a lot of times that it was not as good. Everyone thinks, I got to be wealthy beyond anybody's dreams. There were times when I didn't have anything, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and
A
the
lot of
lady
people.
upstairs, yeah, a lot of and that's the. I think the more personally, the more you're able to go inside, the more global it becomes. The more everyone can relate to it.
So
So,
true. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It was wonderful hearing from you again. I hope to see you guys again soon.
God willing, it'll be
Uh,
very soon. And like I said, everyone who has a chance to get out and see this Billy Joel Stevie Nicks show, please do yourself a favor. And Bob, you're an absolute joy and a gentleman to have allowed me into your world. Be safe out there. Peace and love, everyone.
Peace and love. See you soon. Take care.
God
Bye
bless.
bye.